everybody, and welcome to my Booktubathon Final Thoughts. So this video is going to be a sort of wrap-up style video for the Booktubathon, but I'm going to start off by saying too that I did do a vlog throughout the week, kind of. Towards the end of the week, because I was on vacation, I didn't vlog nearly as much. However, when I started to edit all the stuff today, it just wasn't working. It's just kind of a mess. Also, some of the videos are not uploading from my phone for some reason. They're not importing or whatever. But if you do want to see what I do have edited and all that good stuff, let me know in the comments, and I will post what if you guys are curious about how it kind of went. But I will give an overall final thoughts right here, right now. So as always, I'm going to start off with the negative points of the Booktubathon and my sort of negative experience with it, and then I'll do the positive and then just kind of final thoughts. So the negative aspect of it, I found out that I just get burnt out so easily, especially when I'm reading books that I don't like, and I'll get to that in just a minute. I found that I pushed myself too hard during this Booktubathon. I wanted to push myself to finish these books before we went on our trip, and it just didn't work out as well as I thought it was going to be. Number one, I got burnt out sort of emotionally because I wanted to push myself to read the books, I wanted to do the Instagram challenges, and I wanted to do the YouTube challenges. I didn't do the Twitter sprints because I just don't really do Twitter a whole lot, and it was just too much. It was just too much, plus the stress of trying to get ready for a big trip. It just kind of weighed on me, and it just weighed me down, and I just couldn't deal with it. So that was kind of the negative experience I had with it. Also, I didn't want to DNF books because I felt like because it was part of a challenge, and also because these books were doubling for 2 different challenges, I didn't want to DNF them because I'm like, oh, I'm going to fail the challenge. And so I pushed myself to read this book in particular that I did not like, that just drove me crazy, and it almost put me in a slump. I really didn't want to. Also, I realized that I probably should do more audiobooks whenever I do these challenges, because physically reading the books caused me so much eye strain that it took me a couple days to recover after we got to our destination with our vacation. It took me a couple days to recover because not only was I reading a ton, I had to keep my eyes on the road because I get car sick, and so that was a strain, and then also doing the YouTube challenges, and so editing and posting things, so constantly on the computer, constantly on my phone to do the Instagram challenges. It just caused so much eye strain that it was not very fun. So that was kind of the negative aspect of it. Also the competitive aspect of it. I only found out a couple years ago that I am in fact very competitive. For years I bragged that I was not competitive, and then I got married, and I finally asked my husband one day, sweetie, after we played a game, I'm like, sweetie, am I competitive? And he's like, yeah. And almost immediate answer, yeah, you're competitive. And so I was like, oh my gosh. It was like this big revelation, right? But I only get really competitive if I feel like I have a chance to win. But I was participating in these challenges, and I guess I wasn't winning. And so I was getting a little bit frustrated, getting a bit down on myself, and just asking my husband, why am I doing this? Why am I participating in these things? I'm not having fun. And he said, just focus on doing those things for fun. Just focus on that. So he helped me kind of just reorient my thinking into do this thing because you want to do it for fun. Also, I realized that it hurt more because it was more of a creative competition. And I get really tender-hearted when it comes to creative competitions because you're sort of sharing a piece of yourself. And if you feel like you didn't win, you sort of feel like that's a judgment on who you are. And I know that's improper thinking, and I realized that, and so I was like, okay, I need to change my thinking, and I need to sort of come back to myself and just do these things for fun, and realize that I can stop reading a book if I need to, if I want to, if I'm not enjoying it. This is something that I need to realize about myself. So that was sort of the negative aspect of the whole experience that I had. But I learned a few things about myself and about my reading habits and things like that I can apply now to better my channel and better my reading experiences. So now on to the positive experiences I had. The positive experiences, I participated in some of these Instagram challenges, and it was really fun to stretch myself and to learn and to grow, especially in a medium that I'm not totally familiar with, and can never understand how people did so well in. Whenever I see these beautiful Instagram photos, I just was like, how do they do that? How do they even come up with that and all that good stuff, right? So day 4 comes along, and this is the day that we are leaving for the trip. We're not leaving till about like 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And I decide to randomly be like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do these for fun now. I want to do this for fun. And the challenge was to post a photo of one of your book collections. And so I was like, okay, I've got a couple of those. I can do that. I decided that my Tolkien collection was much bigger, and it was the biggest collection I had. And so I grabbed all that stuff. I saw a few people doing like photos of them in a circle of their books. And so I was like, I kind of want to do something like that. And so I did. But instead of having me like sitting in the middle reading, which a lot of people did, I did a circle of all my Tolkien books. And then I have Aragorn's sword, like a full length. It's almost as tall as I am. And I put on a pretty dress, and I decided to sit in the middle, lay in the middle of all these books and snap a photo, and I thought it would be like all pretty and ethereal and looking cool and whatever. Anyways, it started to get a lot of likes, like way more than I'm used to. I mean, I would get like 10, maybe 15 likes on an Instagram photo, and most of that was from family and personal friends, right? Well, then it started getting into like the 50s and 60s, and I was like, holy cow, this is getting really popular for me. This was really impressive. But then on our drive up to Idaho, I was checking my phone once again because I was really excited that it was getting, a bunch of likes, and I saw that the onering.net shared my photo on their Instagram page, and credited me in their little description thing. And I just about lost it, because the onering.net is a really huge like fan-based Lord of the Rings like fan club, and I was so excited, and I went and checked how many followers they have, and they have over 57,000 followers. So that was potentially 57,000 people seeing my photo. And and then the likes just came flooding in, hundreds at a time, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I think that photo has up to like 500 something likes on my personal page, which is the most likes I've ever gotten on any kind of social media platform. Any kind of attention like has never been on that scale. And then when I went and checked on the onering.net, like their Instagram page, it was getting like 5,000 likes, and I was just ecstatic. I just blew my mind that this could happen to me. Later that night, I was like, oh, please let me win, because this is getting so popular, please let me win. And it totally won. So I won an Owl Crate box and for free, and I'm just so excited. It was just a really epic moment for me, and I got a ton of followers because of it. I mean, I'm still nowhere near like celebrity status, of course, right? But it was just a huge boost for me, and sort of a boost of confidence for me. So after that, I was able to, I kind of relaxed a bit and was like, okay, that was amazing. That was a really good experience and so much fun. Also, the other positive experiences I had were some of these books that I read were so good, were so amazing, and I've had on my shelf for a long time. And so I'm going to go through them just really quick. Of course, I've read this book several times. This is A Lightly Addict by Shel Silverstein, and I loved this book. I marked, my favorite poems from this book. I grew up with Shel Silverstein, and I love the lessons that you can learn from Shel Silverstein. His poems are fun and cute and whimsical, but then there's also some that are very sad and serious and have a wonderful lesson with them. His poetry is just phenomenal. Also, his illustrations are so fun. They're just pen and ink, simple drawings, and they may look crappy, but in their simplicity, they have just a wonderful beauty and sincerity about them that I just love. So 5 out of 5 stars. Love this one so much. Okay, now my experience with this book is what almost sent me into a slump, and that was The Black Stallion. Now, I know this is a classic, and it might be a shocker for some people, because I love horse stories. I love stories about horses. Black Beauty is one of my favorite classics. I just love horse stories. Maggie Stiefvater's Scorpio Races is one of my top favorite books of all time. This was such a drag. I mean, I have several minutes of vlogging video, me just complaining about this book. It was a fun adventure story, and I can see why people would have fond memories of it. If they read it as a kid, it's a fun adventure story, and then looking back on it, you're like, oh, it's so nostalgic, it's so fun. But reading it as an adult, I was bored to tears. Like, there was no stakes. I didn't feel connected to any of the characters except for maybe the Black Stallion. You know, you don't really get his opinion on things. The most exciting part was at the very beginning, which, when the boy was on the island with the horse, but that part of the book was only like a tiny, tiny bit. And the rest of it was him going back to his parents with the Black Stallion and him training the Black Stallion to be a good racehorse with this old man. But then at the very end, it was like Seabiscuit fan fiction. I mean, you know the story about Seabiscuit, where there was Seabiscuit on one coast and then there was War Admiral on another coast, and they were both the fastest horses in their area, and so they finally raced against each other to find out who the fastest horse was. It's the exact same scenario in this book. There's two horses from two different coasts who are claimed to be the fastest horses, and they don't want to race each other because it's just a pride thing, but then they finally agree to race each other, and then the boy and the old man decide, well, let's throw the Black Stallion in there. Let's talk to this reporter and get the Black Stallion into the race. There's no stakes except for pride. There was no stakes whatsoever. The boy wasn't going to lose the farm because he lost the race. The old man wasn't going to lose anything because he lost the race. He's already retired. And the boy still had his parents and all that. I mean, there was just no stakes whatsoever. There's nothing that made me like, okay, the Black Stallion has to win this race. He has to win it because everything is resting on this race. No, it was nothing like that. I'm sorry if I sound really bitter, but this book just, because it was such a classic, I was really, really disappointed. And so I mean, I'll keep this old copy because it's interesting, and, you know, maybe my kids will love it someday, but I definitely like Black Beauty better as a sort of classic horse book, horse story. The movie for the Black Stallion was not much better. They did raise some emotional things in the movie more than they did in the book. One of the things that they changed was that the boy's father was lost on the boat when it sunk, and so he had this emotional turmoil about this horse, and, you know, convincing his mom, like, please let me race in this race because I lost my father, and all this stuff, and, you know, but none of that was mentioned until the very, very end of the story. And so the movie was just bad 1970s, you know, parts where there was no music at all, and it just felt uncomfortable, and there were parts where the music was really out of place and just bizarre. So my whole experience with this was just not very pleasant, not very positive. So I would give this 1 star, maybe 2. It was pretty brutal, guys. It almost threw me into a slump. I actually got really, really grumpy and angry after reading this. The next book I read, though, pulled me out of that slump. So I was pretty excited, and that was Wings of Fire: The Dark Secret. This book just reaffirmed how much I am enjoying this series, this little middle grade series. I just love it. It's so fun. There were things that were brought about in this book that explained things in the previous book that just made me feel so much better about the series. So the book before this, I thought that the author just threw in this convenient plot device that I was like, okay, yeah, whatever, you know, that exists, I guess, and that's convenient. And I thought it was kind of dumb and silly. But then I read this one, and it totally explains why that thing exists and why that plot point occurred. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And so for a middle grade series, she's made a really wonderfully, like, complicated plot, but the characters are what is driving me in this story. I care so much about what happens to these dragonettes who are just tender little cinnamon rolls. You know, I just love them so, so much. And so I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm reading the next one right now, and I am dying. It's so good. Also, this one at the very end drops a bomb that I just was like, oh my gosh! You know, it just kind of made me freak out a little bit. But anyways, so that's been my experience with reading this one. I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. I totally adore it. I just adore this series. It's been such a wonderfully surprising, enjoyable read for me. The next book I finished, this was the last book I finished before we left on our trip, and that was The Tale of Despereaux by Kate DiCamillo. Guys, if you're going to read a kid's story, a kid's book, ever in your life, make it this one. This was such a wonderfully beautiful story that was just so meaningful. I have all these like tabbies marked of these quotes that are just so applicable to your life, not only as a kid, but as an adult. And I mean, it has some darkness to it, though, like, just to warn you, it's got some deaths and some dark things in it, but I think there's a quote in here even that says, you know, the best stories have a little bit of darkness in them because that's how life is. Life has darkness in it, and the illustrations are beautiful, and the writing is beautiful. Guys, read this book. This is a new favorite. This was so wonderfully good. I cannot recommend this one. I mean, 5 out of 5 stars. Like, if I could give it 6 out of 5 stars, I would. 10 out of 5 stars. It just, this blew me away. I loved this book so much, and I feel like kids and adults would appreciate it. However, because of some of the darkness that's in it, some tender-hearted little kids may get a little frightened. So just a warning for that one. But this was such a wonderful story, guys. I just cannot recommend this book enough. It was so wonderful. The last book I finished in the Booktubeathon challenge was Warhorse. And Warhorse, this one, it was a really short read. It was really exciting. It was heartbreaking. It was really good. I enjoyed this one a lot more than the Black Stallion. I still like Black Beauty better, but Warhorse was a really good, sort of exciting adventure story, a very different take on World War I, a different perspective, and there are parts that just break your heart, but they're also these wonderful, just tender moments of kindness that just really sort of touch your heart, and I really enjoyed this one. So this one's definitely a keeper. I would give this one about 4 out of 5 stars. It was really good. So I didn't get to finish Wizard of Earthsea. I haven't even started it yet, but I'm going to be starting this one this week once I finish my other book. Again, this book we didn't finish during the challenge, but we listened to this one on tape while we were driving. This one was... I wish I had read it. I wish I had read the physical copy because my comprehension level is not as good when I'm reading, it's not as good when I'm listening as it is when I'm reading. And this is definitely one that I would have liked to at certain points during listening to the tape, I wanted to go back and reread a sentence or reread a paragraph, but I couldn't because we were listening to it on tape, right? This is definitely one where I feel like my comprehension level would have been better if I had read it rather than listened to it. This one I felt like was very profound, and as somebody who was born and raised Christian, I felt like it was very profound, and there were points that were funny, but again, it was more really interesting take on it, and I really had to switch my brain over because you know, it's a book about a demon trying to corrupt, you know, a greater demon teaching a lesser demon how to corrupt man, right? You know, going from reading scripture to reading stuff like this was a real mind trip. It was super bizarre because you had to comprehend, like, oh, whenever Screwtape is talking about the enemy, he's talking about God or angels or, you know, the good side of things. And whenever he's talking about, like, oh, our compatriots or things like that, he's talking about evil and he's talking about the devil, and so that was really interesting. I feel like though if you don't know a ton about the Christian religion, then I don't know if you would enjoy this as much as people who are Christian or who were born and raised Christian or who understand the Christian religion. I feel like they would appreciate it more or enjoy it more because it seems like if you don't know anything about Christianity, then you're kind of on the outside of an inside joke. I'm not saying that you wouldn't understand it. I'm saying that you may not enjoy it as much as people who maybe understand the Christian religion a little bit better. The Screwtape Letters, though, I feel like it was really good, really profound. It was a unique take on things and good and evil, and so I would give it 5 out of 5 stars. It was really good. This is something that I want to go back and reread several times. And I want to go back and annotate it really bad. So that's on my list of rereads. Overall, my experience with the Booktubeathon was eye-opening, I would say. And so I realized things about myself. I am going to give myself more permission to DNF books. I am no longer going to make myself read books that I am no longer enjoying, especially books like The Black Stallion, where I just really wanted to put it down and get to more books that I was more excited about and enjoyed more. You know, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to waste my time with any more books that I just don't want to enjoy. Also, I realized too that I need to curb my competitive side of things, you know, because this is a hobby. This is something that I'm enjoying, and once it becomes something where you win or lose, then it's no longer fun and it's not an enjoyable experience. So this has been my experience with the Booktubeathon. Thank you so much for watching. Again, leave a comment if you want me to post my vlog thoughts and all that good stuff. We'll see you next time. As always, thank you for watching. Bye.